The Christmas lights glittered across the snow-covered streets, but Elon Musk's focus was on a peculiar challenge unfolding at his billionaire friend's lavish holiday party. "Bet you can't do it," teased one of the guests, handing Elon a glass of champagne. They smirked and glanced toward a shy, overweight woman sitting quietly in the corner. Her name was Clara, a simple woman with no interest in the glamour around her. She clutched a book in her hand, completely unaware of the spotlight shifting toward her. Elon, always one to rise to a challenge, raised his eyebrow. "What's the bet?" he asked with a mischievous grin. "To marry her." They laughed, barely able to contain their amusement. "We'll donate $10 million to any charity of your choice if you can convince her by the end of the night." Elon hesitated for a moment, his mind racing. It wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about the sheer audacity of the dare. But as his gaze shifted back to Clara, something unusual caught his attention. Her calm demeanor, the way she seemed unbothered by the glitz around her, and the genuine warmth in her smile as she turned a page. This wasn't going to be as simple as anyone thought. Before I go deeper into this unexpected turn of events, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to hear more stories that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Elon walked up to Clara, his approach casual but purposeful. "Hi, I'm Elon," he said, offering his hand. Clara looked up, startled, her eyes narrowing as she processed who he was. "I know who you are," she replied, her voice steady but cautious. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, pulling out the chair before she could respond. Clara raised an eyebrow but didn't stop him. What brings the world's busiest man to a corner of the room where no one is looking? Elon chuckled. Sometimes the most interesting things are in the corners where no one's paying attention. Her lips curved into a small smile, but there was still skepticism in her eyes. As the night unfolded, Elon found himself unexpectedly drawn into Clara's world. She wasn't like anyone he had ever met. She didn't care about his fame or fortune. She challenged him in ways no one dared to, about life, values, and the meaning of happiness. What started as a dare was quickly turning into something much more complicated. And while the crowd watched from afar, whispering and laughing about what Elon might say or do next, he realized that the bet was no longer his biggest problem. Clara was. As the party wound down and the music softened, Clara stood to leave. Elon quickly followed, surprising even himself with the urgency in his steps. "Wait," he called out, catching her by the door. Clara turned, her brow furrowed in confusion. "I was hoping we could talk more. Maybe over dinner sometime?" His tone was genuine, almost pleading, but Clara hesitated. She crossed her arms, looking him square in the eye. "Dinner? With the Elon Musk? What's your angle here? You don't strike me as the kind of man who spends time with people like me." Elon was caught off guard. For a man who could navigate billion-dollar negotiations with ease, Clara's directness left him fumbling for words. I just think you're interesting. Different. You're not like everyone else here," he finally managed. Clara let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. "Different? Is that what this is? Some kind of novelty for you? Thanks, but no thanks, Mr. Musk." She turned to leave, but Elon wasn't giving up that easily. "Clara, wait," he said, stepping in front of her. "I'm not playing games. I want to get to know you better. Please." For a moment, Clara looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then she sighed. "All right, Elon. One dinner. But on my terms. No cameras, no media, and definitely no talk about your money or your rockets. Deal?" Elon grinned, relieved. "Deal." The next evening, they met at a small, cozy diner Clara chose, a far cry from the luxury restaurants Elon was used to. She ordered a slice of pie and coffee, and Elon, mirroring her, did the same. Their conversation started cautiously, but soon flowed naturally. Clara spoke about her love for teaching, her passion for community work, and her dreams of making the world a kinder place. Elon found himself sharing stories he rarely told, about his struggles, his doubts, and the loneliness that often came with his fame. As the night went on, Elon felt something shift inside him. He wasn't just trying to win a bet anymore. He was captivated. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about the future or his next big move. He was simply present, hanging on to every word Clara said. But while Elon was discovering something genuine, Clara was growing suspicious. Why was a man like Elon Musk, who could have anyone, so interested in her? The question lingered in her mind as they said goodnight, Elon walking her to her car. "Thank you, Clara," he said softly as she got in. "For tonight." It meant a lot. Clara smiled, but as she drove away, her thoughts were clouded with doubt. Something didn't feel right, and she was determined to find out what it was. What neither of them knew was that someone from the party had overheard the original bet and was about to expose it in the most public way possible. The calm of the following morning was shattered when Clara's phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. Confused, she reached for it, her heart sinking as she opened her social media feed. A video from the party had gone viral. The grainy footage showed Elon Musk laughing with a group of guests. The audio wasn't clear, but the captions made everything unmistakable. "Billionaire takes a bet to marry a nobody. Watch him work his magic." Clara's stomach churned. She scrolled through the comments, each one more humiliating than the last. She must think she's won the jackpot. Poor girl doesn't even know it's a game. Classic billionaire arrogance. Her hands trembled as she put the phone down. Every conversation, every moment from the previous night, suddenly felt tainted. How could she have been so naive? Meanwhile, Elon sat in his office, oblivious to the chaos until his assistant barged in, holding a tablet. "You need to see this," she said urgently, setting it on his desk. As Elon watched the video, his jaw tightened. He recognized the voices, the laughter, but most of all, the betrayal. Someone from that party had set him up, turning what had started as a careless dare into a public spectacle. Before he could process it further, his phone buzzed. It was Clara. He answered quickly, but her voice was ice cold. "Was it true?" she asked, skipping any pleasantries. "Was this all a bet?" "Clara, listen to me. Just answer the question, Elon," she snapped, her tone laced with hurt and anger. Elon sighed deeply. "It started that way," he admitted, "but it stopped being a bet the moment I spoke to you. Last night wasn't part of any game, Clara. I meant every word." Clara let out a bitter laugh. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me? To wake up and find out the world thinks I'm some kind of joke?" "Let me fix this," Elon pleaded. "I'll make a statement, shut this down. Just give me a chance." "You can't fix this, Elon," she said quietly. "Some things can't be undone." The line went dead, leaving Elon staring at his phone, his heart sinking. But Elon Musk wasn't a man who gave up easily. He immediately called his team, demanding they track the source of the leak. As his staff scrambled to control the narrative, Elon wrestled with something he hadn't felt in years: regret. Clara, on the other hand, was determined to move on. She spent the day ignoring calls and messages, burying herself in her work. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the lingering feeling that Elon's words last night had been genuine. Could a man like him really have meant what he said? As the sun set, Clara received an unexpected knock at her door. When she opened it, there stood Elon, holding a plain envelope. "I know you don't want to see me," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "But please, just read this. If you still want me to leave after, I will." Clara hesitated before taking the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. As she unfolded it, her eyes scanned the words, and her expression shifted from anger to confusion, and then to something she couldn't quite place. By the time she looked up, Elon was gone. What was in the letter that made Clara pause? And would it be enough to mend the damage caused by the viral scandal? Clara sat down, her hands trembling as she held the letter. The handwriting was neat, deliberate, as if every word had been carefully chosen. She took a deep breath and began to read. "Dear Clara, I know this letter may be too little, too late, but I owe you the truth. Not the carefully constructed truths people usually see in me, but the real one. Yes, this started as a careless, thoughtless bet. A foolish mistake made in a moment I deeply regret. But that's not what you need to know." She paused, her heart pounding. She wanted to be angry, but something about the tone made her continue. "From the moment I spoke to you, something shifted. For years, I've been surrounded by people who only care about what I can do for them. People who flatter, who play games, who see me as a transaction. But you? You didn't ask for anything. You didn't care about my status. You saw me, not the CEO or the billionaire. Just me. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Clara blinked, her throat tightening as she read further. When I sat across from you at that diner, I didn't feel like Elon Musk, the man everyone knows. I felt like a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. A better version, one that could laugh freely, talk openly, and forget, even for a moment, the weight of everything else. That wasn't a bet, Clara. That was real. The anger in her chest softened, replaced by a mix of confusion and longing. She wanted to believe him, but the hurt still lingered. She read the final lines. I can't erase what's happened, but I can show you who I truly am, if you'll let me. Not because of a bet, but because of the way you make me feel, like I can be more than what the world expects me to be. I'll wait for your answer, for as long as it takes. Yours, Elon. Clara folded the letter carefully, her mind racing. Was it possible that Elon was telling the truth? Could she trust him after everything? The next morning, she woke up to a knock on her door. Groaning, she shuffled to open it, expecting another reporter or nosy neighbor. Instead, she found a young boy holding a small, potted Christmas tree with a note tied to one of the branches. The note read, "For your classroom. Every tree deserves a chance to grow, just like us. Elon." Clara's lips curved into an involuntary smile, despite herself. She closed the door, leaning against it, clutching the tree. At the same moment, across town, Elon sat in his office, waiting. His team had managed to trace the source of the leak, someone Clara barely knew from the party. With the truth in hand, Elon issued a public statement, calling out the malicious intent behind the video and defending Clara in front of millions. But the gesture wasn't about repairing his image. For the first time, Elon wasn't thinking about public opinion. He was thinking only of her. Clara didn't respond to the gesture immediately, but she watched as the news cycle began to shift. The internet started praising her strength, and even Elon's sincerity in standing up for her. Still, she wasn't sure if she could face him yet. That evening, as she sat staring at the tree, her phone buzzed with a new notification. A live interview was airing, Elon Musk speaking about the scandal. Reluctantly, Clara clicked on it, bracing herself. The interviewer leaned forward, asking the question everyone wanted answered. Was this all really about a bet? Elon hesitated, his jaw tightening. Then he said, "It was never just a bet. It became something I never expected, something I don't want to lose." The camera cut to Clara's face, her reflection in the phone screen showing a mix of surprise and emotion. Was it enough to break through her walls? As Clara watched the interview unfold, her emotions became a whirlwind. Part of her wanted to believe Elon's words, to trust the vulnerability he showed on live television. Yet, another part of her, the one still holding onto the pain, whispered caution. She turned off the TV, unable to watch anymore. The days that followed were quieter than Clara expected. The paparazzi stopped camping outside her house. The internet's frenzy over the scandal seemed to ebb, replaced by trending holiday stories and celebrity gossip. Elon had gone silent, too. No grand gestures, no public apologies beyond the interview. Clara appreciated the calm, but it left her with more time to think. The Christmas tree sat on her kitchen table, its tiny lights glowing softly each night. It reminded her of the moments she'd laughed with Elon, the way he'd made her feel seen, special. Was it all a facade, or was there a chance he was genuine? Then, on Christmas Eve, a package arrived at her doorstep. Clara hesitated before bringing it inside. The box was plain, unmarked, and surprisingly heavy. She opened it carefully, revealing a collection of items that took her breath away. At the top was a handwritten note. "These are the pieces of my life I've never shared with anyone. I want you to see who I am, beyond the headlines and the money. If you still don't want to see me after this, I'll respect your decision, but I hope you'll give us a chance." Elon. Inside the box were mementos that felt intensely personal. A faded photo of a younger Elon with his mother, notes scribbled on napkins with ideas for inventions, a dog-eared copy of a book about space exploration with passages underlined in blue ink, and a tiny charm in the shape of a rocket ship. Clara picked up the charm, its metal cool against her palm. At the bottom of the box was a framed photo. It was from the night of their dinner, the two of them sitting across from each other, mid-laugh. She didn't even remember anyone taking the picture. For the first time in weeks, Clara felt tears slide down her cheeks. She wasn't sure if they were from anger, sadness, or hope. Maybe all three. Later that evening, as she sat alone in her living room, the Christmas tree glowing beside her, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Elon. "Merry Christmas, Clara. No matter what you decide, I'm grateful for the time we had. You reminded me what it means to feel truly alive." Clara stared at the screen for a long time. Then, without allowing herself to overthink, she typed a response, "Merry Christmas, Elon. Let's talk." Across town, Elon was sitting by his own tree when her message came through. His heart leaped, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled. Moments later, Clara's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a call. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the screen, before finally answering. "Clara," Elon said softly, his voice filled with relief. "You've got 5 minutes?" she replied, trying to keep her tone light, though her heart was pounding. And so, as the snow fell gently outside, their conversation began. A real one, unguarded and raw, with no bets, no pretenses, just two people trying to make sense of the mess they'd created. The conversation between Clara and Elon began tentatively, with a few awkward pauses and careful words. Clara wasn't sure what to expect, but Elon surprised her by speaking with an honesty she hadn't anticipated. "I didn't plan for any of this," he said. "The bet was a stupid mistake, one I'll regret for the rest of my life. But what I felt for you, that wasn't part of the game. Clara, you made me feel human again." Clara's heart ached at his words, but she couldn't let go of her skepticism just yet. "You say that now, but why should I believe you? You've been surrounded by people your entire life who only care about your money, your fame. How do I know I'm not just another project for you?" Elon took a deep breath, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "Because you're the first person who ever challenged me, Clara. You didn't care about my name or my wealth. You called me out on my arrogance. You made me laugh when I needed it most. And you made me realize how empty my life had become." For a moment, silence filled the air. Clara could hear the crackling of her fireplace, the faint hum of Christmas music from the radio. She wanted to believe him, but trust wasn't something she could give so easily anymore. "I don't know, Elon," she said finally. "It's not that simple. You hurt me, and you made me doubt myself. I don't know if I can just forget all of that." "I'm not asking you to forget," Elon said softly. "I'm asking for a chance to prove myself, to show you that I can be better. Not just for you, but for me." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. Clara felt a flicker of something she hadn't expected, hope. She looked over at the box he had sent, the little pieces of his life that spoke more loudly than any words could. "I need time," she said after a long pause. "This isn't something I can decide overnight." "I understand," Elon replied, his tone respectful but tinged with sadness. "Take all the time you need. But for what it's worth, Clara, I'll wait. As long as it takes." They said their goodbyes, and Clara hung up, her mind spinning. She wasn't sure if she'd made the right decision, but at least now, the choice was in her hands. Christmas morning arrived with a blanket of fresh snow covering the neighborhood. Clara woke up to the sound of children laughing outside, their joy infectious. She stood by her window, watching the world come alive with holiday cheer. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a photo. It was from Elon. The picture showed him standing in front of a homeless shelter, wearing a Santa hat and holding a tray of food. The caption read, "A small start to making things right. Merry Christmas, Clara." Clara couldn't help but smile. Maybe, just maybe, people could change. By the evening, Clara found herself walking down a snowy path, her scarf pulled tightly around her neck. The night was quiet, save for the occasional car passing by. She didn't know why she was doing this. Why she'd let her feet guide her to the spot where she and Elon had shared their first impromptu coffee date weeks ago. As she turned the corner, her breath caught in her throat. There he was, standing under the soft glow of a street lamp, holding 2 cups of steaming coffee. His smile was nervous but hopeful. "You came," Elon said, his voice barely above a whisper. Clara walked closer, her heart pounding. "I'm not sure what this means," she said honestly, "but I'm here." And for the first time in what felt like forever, Elon felt like he'd been given a second chance. Not just with Clara, but with himself. They sat down on the same bench as before, the snow falling gently around them. Their conversation continued, this time with no walls, no pretense. Just 2 people, trying to figure out if Christmas miracles were real after all. The night stretched on, but the cold air felt comforting to Clara as she and Elon shared stories, laughed, and even sat in comfortable silence, just taking in the peacefulness of the moment. There was something different about this time together, something that hadn't been there before. The heaviness of expectations and missteps seemed to lift, replaced by a quiet understanding. "I've never really done Christmas like this," Elon confessed, staring up at the snowflakes drifting down. "I'm always so focused on what's next, the next venture, the next idea. It's easy to forget to just be present." Clara looked at him, her heart softening. "Sometimes, we get so caught up in what we think we're supposed to be doing that we forget to live." Elon nodded. "Exactly. I didn't realize how much I was missing out on until I met you. You made me see life differently. You made me feel things I didn't know I was capable of feeling." Clara glanced at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his words. There was no bravado, no defense mechanisms, just the truth. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. She took a deep breath, her voice quiet but steady. "I don't know if I can forget what happened, Elon. The bet, the lies. But I'm willing to see where we can go from here. No more games. Just us, figuring this out." Elon's eyes lit up, a mixture of relief and gratitude flooding his expression. "I don't want to lose you, Clara. I'm not perfect, and I don't expect you to forgive me just like that. But I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust again." They sat in silence for a while, watching the snow settle around them, the city lights twinkling in the distance. It was a moment of peace, something neither of them had felt in a long time. After a while, Clara stood up, brushing the snow off her coat. "I should probably get going. It's Christmas, after all. My family's expecting me." Elon stood too, his expression both hopeful and vulnerable. "I understand. But, do you think, maybe, we could spend some more time together? No pressure. Just let things happen, however they're meant to." Clara thought for a moment, then nodded. "I think that sounds like a good idea." Elon smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. "Thank you, Clara, for giving me a chance." As she walked away, Clara couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope for the future. She wasn't sure what would happen between them, but one thing was certain: this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new, something honest, and that was enough for now. The following days passed in a blur of holiday activities, but Clara found herself thinking about Elon more and more. There were still uncertainties, still pieces of the puzzle that didn't quite fit, but each moment they spent together felt like a small step towards something better. And just when Clara thought she had everything figured out, she received another surprise. It was a letter, hand-delivered to her doorstep. There was no return address, no name, just her name, written in bold, careful handwriting. Her curiosity piqued. Clara opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a letter from Elon. "Clara, I've spent so much of my life trying to change the world, to make an impact. But in the process, I lost touch with what really matters, what's right in front of me. You. I may not have all the answers, but I'm ready to fight for what we have, to show you I'm not the man I once was. Let's make this our story, not the one the world expects from us. I'll be waiting, whenever you're ready." She read it through several times, her heart racing. This wasn't a grand gesture, a public apology, or another bet. It was a promise that he was willing to fight for her, no matter what the world thought. Clara smiled, folding the letter carefully. Maybe, just maybe, this Christmas would be the start of something she hadn't imagined before. Something real, something worth fighting for. And as the snow continued to fall outside, Clara knew she had a choice to make. A choice between holding on to the past and the wounds that came with it, or stepping into the future, uncertain but hopeful. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to make that choice. Clara spent the next few days reflecting on Elon's letter, trying to make sense of the emotions swirling inside her. The world outside felt like it had paused for a moment, with the snow continuing to fall softly, covering the streets in a quiet blanket. Her thoughts were filled with images of Elon, the way he had changed before her eyes, the way he'd opened up in ways she never expected. She couldn't deny it anymore. There was something between them, something real. But could she trust it? Could she trust him? The question lingered in her mind as she prepared for the New Year's Eve celebration. Her family was hosting a small gathering, and she had no intention of bringing Elon. They hadn't made any official decisions yet. Besides, Clara wasn't sure if she was ready for that step, for the world to know that she was opening herself up to him again. But when the doorbell rang that night, Clara froze. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her heart skipped a beat as she walked toward the door, unsure of who it could be. When she opened it, she found Elon standing there, his hands stuffed into his coat pockets, wearing a nervous yet determined expression. "Elon," Clara whispered, surprised to see him. "What are you doing here?" He smiled softly, his eyes sincere. "I know it's last minute, and I know you might not be ready for this, but I couldn't stay away. I want to start this year by showing you that I'm serious about us, about proving I can be the man you deserve." Clara was taken aback. She wasn't sure what she'd been expecting, but this wasn't it. There was no grand gesture, no desperate plea. It was simply him, standing there, vulnerable yet confident. "I don't know what to say," Clara replied honestly, her voice wavering slightly. "I'm still figuring things out. You've hurt me, Elon. I'm not sure if I can just forget all of that." "I'm not asking you to forget," he said gently, his voice steady. "I'm just asking for a chance to show you that I can be better, that I can be someone you can trust. I've made mistakes, but I'm willing to spend the rest of my life proving I can change." The sincerity in his eyes made Clara's heart ache. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But the fear of being hurt again held her back. The wounds from their past were still fresh, and they hadn't yet healed. "I don't know if I'm ready to let you back in yet," Clara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Elon took a step closer, his expression soft but unwavering. "Then let me prove it to you, step by step. I'll wait, Clara. I'll wait as long as it takes. But please, don't shut me out. Not yet." Clara stood there for a long moment, the silence between them stretching. She didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, she felt something stir inside her. It wasn't just hope. It was a quiet trust that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. "I'm scared," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I know," Elon replied, his voice filled with empathy. "But we don't have to do it all at once. One step at a time. Together." Clara looked up at him, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision. But there was something in his eyes, something real, something genuine, that made her feel like maybe she wasn't the only one who was scared. Maybe they both were. With a deep breath, she made her choice. "All right, one step at a time." Elon's face broke into a relieved smile. "Thank you. I won't let you down. I promise." As he reached for her hand, Clara felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. The possibility of love, of trust, and of a future that wasn't defined by the past. The night unfolded slowly, with Clara and Elon spending time together with her family, the atmosphere light and filled with laughter. It wasn't perfect, and Clara still had her doubts, but for the first time in what felt like ages, she allowed herself to be present in the moment. The pain of the past still lingered, but the hope for the future grew stronger with each passing second. As midnight approached, Clara found herself standing by the window, watching the fireworks light up the sky. Elon joined her, standing close but not intruding on her space. Together, they watched as the world around them erupted in color, the promise of a new year beginning. "I'm glad you came tonight," Clara said softly, her voice almost lost in the sound of the fireworks. I wouldn't be anywhere else, Elon replied, his gaze on her full of warmth. Happy New Year, Clara. She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't known she could still feel. Happy New Year, Elon. Let's see what the future holds. And as the fireworks continued to explode in the sky above them, Clara realized that while the journey ahead was uncertain, it was one she was willing to face with him. The next morning, Clara woke up to find a message from Elon waiting for her on her phone. It was simple, but the words felt heavy with meaning. I'm ready to prove it to you, Clara. Every single day. And for the first time in a long while, Clara believed him. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of emotions for Clara. Elon's presence in her life had become a constant, but unlike before, it wasn't overwhelming. It was gentle, steady, and full of patience. Every day, he showed her how far he was willing to go to make things right. His actions spoke louder than his words, and Clara couldn't help but notice. One afternoon, as they sat together in a small cafe, Clara noticed the way Elon watched her when she spoke, how his eyes never left hers, how he hung on every word. It was different from the past, when his attention was divided, lost in his world of business and ambition. Now, his world seemed to revolve around her, and Clara didn't know how to process that change. Elon, Clara said, taking a deep breath, you've been so patient with me, and I know I've been hard on you, but it's just, I need time. I don't want to rush into anything. I'm scared of getting hurt again. You understand that, right? He reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. The warmth of his touch reassured her, but there was a sadness in his eyes that tugged at her heart. I understand, Clara. More than you know, Elon replied, his voice soft yet resolute. But if you need time, I'll give you all the time in the world. I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you tell me to. Clara's chest tightened at his words. She had always been afraid of being hurt, of losing herself in someone else's world. But with Elon, she didn't feel like she was losing herself at all. It was as though they were starting to build something new, something different. A relationship founded on trust, understanding, and time. I don't know what to do with all these feelings, Clara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to believe in us, I really do, but I'm still scared. You don't have to have it all figured out right now, Elon said, his thumb gently brushing over the back of her hand. We don't have to define anything right away. Just let me show you. Let me show you that I'm here. And I'll keep showing you, every day, until you feel safe enough to believe in us again. The sincerity in his voice made Clara's heart ache. She wanted to say something in return, something that would ease the tension between them, but she didn't know what words could do that. Instead, she simply nodded, a small tear slipping down her cheek. Elon gently wiped it away with his thumb, his touch soft but firm. I'm not going anywhere, Clara. I'll wait for you. Just promise me you won't shut me out. She stared at him for a long moment, the weight of his words settling on her shoulders. She had been afraid to open her heart, to trust again. But with Elon, something was different. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, or the way he had transformed before her eyes. Maybe it was the way he made her feel safe, like she was worth waiting for. I won't shut you out, she whispered, her voice trembling with the vulnerability she had never allowed herself to show before. But you have to promise me something too. Anything, Elon said without hesitation. You have to promise me you'll never stop proving that you're the man you say you are. You can't go back to being the person I was afraid of. I promise, he said, his voice firm with determination. I won't go back. I'll be better. For you. For us. For the first time in a long while, Clara allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something real. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, Clara and Elon grew closer. He kept his promise, never once wavering in his efforts to prove his sincerity. There were no grand gestures, no flashy displays of affection, just small, meaningful moments that spoke volumes. One evening, after a long day of work, Elon picked Clara up from her apartment, as he had promised he would do every day. They drove to a small park on the outskirts of town, one Clara had never visited before. It was quiet and peaceful, the perfect escape from the chaos of their lives. As they walked through the park, Elon spoke about his childhood, his dreams, and the mistakes he had made along the way. Clara listened intently, realizing just how much she had yet to understand about him. It wasn't just the accomplishments that mattered. It was the lessons he had learned, the growth he had undergone. I used to think I could fix everything on my own, Elon said, his voice low. But I've learned that sometimes, the best thing I can do is listen. To you. To anyone who matters. I've spent so much time building things. I forgot what it meant to really listen to the people around me. Clara squeezed his hand, a small smile playing on her lips. I think you're doing just fine, she said softly. We all have our own journeys, and I'm glad our paths crossed. Elon stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious but full of emotion. Clara, I need you to know something. I'll never stop trying. I'll never stop showing you that I'm here. You're the one thing in my life I'm not willing to lose. I'm willing to fight for us, every day. Tears welled up in Clara's eyes as she looked at him. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe, like she wasn't alone in this journey. She took a deep breath, her heart full. I'm not ready to jump into anything, Elon, she said, her voice steady but vulnerable. But I'm willing to take that first step with you. Slowly, one day at a time. Elon smiled, his eyes filled with gratitude. That's all I need. One day at a time. And as they stood there, holding hands under the fading light of the day, Clara realized that the future was no longer something to be feared. It was something to be embraced, one step at a time. The days after that moment seemed to move in a blur, but not in a rush. Every step forward felt deliberate, every word shared between Clara and Elon meaningful. The pressure that once hovered over Clara's heart began to ease, replaced by a sense of comfort and trust that she hadn't known in years. She had always feared that love would be overwhelming, that it would ask for too much of her. But with Elon, it felt different, like it was simply about being together, growing together, and accepting each other, flaws and all. But as with any story, there came a test. One evening, as Clara was getting ready for a dinner date with Elon, she received a call that rattled her to the core. It was from her ex-husband, the man who had caused her so much pain, who she had sworn to never let back into her life. I need to talk to you, he said, his voice cold and familiar. You owe me that much, Clara. You need to hear what I have to say. Clara froze. She had no intention of ever speaking to him again, but curiosity, or perhaps something deeper, gnawed at her. Against her better judgment, she agreed to meet him. When she arrived at the coffee shop where they'd agreed to meet, she was hit with a wave of anger and old wounds. There he was, sitting at a table, looking the same as he always had, shrouded in arrogance and self-interest. Clara, he said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued, I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. I've made mistakes, and I owe you an apology. Her heart hardened. She wasn't interested in apologies. Not from him. She wasn't even sure she could believe him. I don't need your apology, she replied, her voice sharp. You don't get to come back into my life just because you've realized you messed up. I've moved on. You should too. But he wasn't done. It's not just about me, Clara, he said, his voice cracking. There's something you don't know. Something I didn't want you to find out. Elon, he's not who he seems. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She stared at him, disbelief mixing with anger. What are you talking about? He's hiding something. He's not the man he pretends to be. You've got to listen to me, Clara. He's not the savior you think he is. The room spun around her as her ex-husband's words echoed in her mind. Was this just another manipulation? Another attempt to get into her head? Or was there some truth to it? She had always believed Elon was different, but could her ex really be telling the truth? Stop, she said, standing up abruptly. I don't care what you're trying to say. I don't care about your games anymore. I've found someone who respects me, who's shown me more love than you ever could. I'm done with this conversation. Without waiting for a reply, Clara stormed out of the cafe, her heart racing. Her mind was a whirlwind of confusion, but one thing was clear. She had to talk to Elon. When she arrived at his house later that evening, she found him sitting on the porch, as if he had been waiting for her. The familiar warmth of his presence calmed her nerves, but the unease from the meeting with her ex lingered. "Elon," she began, her voice shaking, "there's something I need to know. Something my ex told me. He said you're hiding something. That you're not the person you seem to be." Elon's expression darkened, but he didn't flinch. He stood up and walked toward her, taking her hands in his. "Clara, I want you to understand something," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "I've made my share of mistakes, but I've never lied to you. What your ex said, that's just manipulation. I am who I am. I've always been open with you. There's nothing hidden. I'm not perfect, but I am real." Clara felt a surge of relief, but the doubt still lingered, a seed planted by her ex's words. She searched his eyes, looking for any sign of deception, but there was none. "I believe you," she said softly, her heart lifting. I need you to know that I trust you. But sometimes I still have doubts. Not about you, but about myself." Elon pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly as if she was the most precious thing in his life. "Clara, you don't need to have all the answers right now. I'll show you every day that you can trust me. That's all I can give you. And I'm not going anywhere." As she stood there in his arms, Clara realized something. She had spent so much of her life afraid of being hurt, afraid of opening up. But with Elon, she didn't need to fear the future. They had built something real, something strong. And no matter the challenges ahead, she knew they could face them together. The next day, as Christmas approached, Elon and Clara found themselves standing in front of a small, cozy church for a Christmas service. The twinkling lights and the soft glow of the candles around them seemed to reflect the warmth that had blossomed between them. "Elon," Clara said quietly, her hand resting in his, "this feels like the beginning of something beautiful. I don't know what the future holds, but with you by my side, I feel like I can face anything." Elon smiled, his eyes reflecting the love and promise that had grown between them. "And I'll be here, no matter what." And in that moment, with the world around them filled with peace and hope, Clara knew that the man standing beside her was more than just the billionaire she had met. He was someone who had proven that love, trust, and patience could heal even the deepest wounds. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's embrace, Clara realized that life had a way of surprising you when you least expected it. And sometimes, the greatest love stories weren't the ones you read about. They were the ones you lived.